we've been doing every Sabbath, and we hope that you have gotten to know a little bit about who we are and where we're coming from and what we're about. We're very passionate about health, and we love to share it with others. So I also just want to say that we don't claim to know everything. We're still learning with you. And I always just say do what you can, because I believe that the enemy wants us on one side of the ditch or the other. He doesn't care which side he puts us on, whether it is eating really bad or thinking that you have to do everything so perfectly that you never get started at all. Just being such a purist that you can't even do it. So I think it's better just to stay on the path. So on counsels on diet and foods and counsels on health, the author speaks over and over again about having good blood. So this is the foundation of health. Good blood. Our blood is the stream of life. It's the river of life. And so we want to get the goods in and get them where they need to go. I've really learned a lot about how important it is to have good blood. When I was 30 years old, I was going with my husband to we were buying a house, and we were really excited, and we were going to buy a refrigerator for our new house. And we had decided to meet for lunch, and at the time we were not vegetarian, but we met at Chick-fil-A, and as we were leaving, I had put the vehicle in reverse, and as I put it in drive and I looked out the windshield, I was seeing double. And so I called my husband right then and I said, I can't drive because I've got double vision. So I'm just going to pull over to the next parking lot and I'll get in the car with you. So we pulled over, and as I tried to get out of the vehicle, my whole left side of my body was numb and I couldn't walk on it. So he carried me into his car and took me across the street to our home. And after a little bit, we decided, well, we just should go to the emergency room. So luckily we did. As soon as I got there and told them what was going on, they took me straight back. I didn't have to wait because those were signs of a stroke, and so they don't play with that. And so they kept asking me 3 questions over and over. Do you smoke? Are you on birth control? And are you under stress? To which I kept saying over and over, no, to all of those questions. Well, at the time, I thought, no, it was a wonderful day. We're excited. We're buying a new house. We're going to pick out our refrigerator. But when I look back on it, yes, I was under a lot of stress, and I didn't realize it because I was about to take on a whole second mortgage, because we still had our other home where our business is. So a whole second mortgage, a whole other set of utilities, another air conditioner, another yard, everything, double responsibility. So sometimes our body knows before we do that we are under stress. We don't realize it sometimes, but our body will tell us. So the neurologist, when he came in, I was in the NICU for 3 days. I never lost my speech or my ability to walk. They had to walk me just to get my strength back. But the neurologist explained that, well, we really can't, they put a camera down my throat, looked at my heart, and took pictures and everything. And they said, we really can't figure out the cause of why this happened. But he said, in theory, basically, some bit of trash or waste or tissue got into the bloodstream and went up to the base of your brainstem and just for a split second cut off the blood flow, and that could cause this to happen. And I was only 30 years old at the time, so I was like, wow, it's really important for your blood to be really clean and really good. And it was interesting because he said, well, we're going to go to a seminar this month and we'll learn more about it. But at the time, we were going to the nutritionist that I told you about, and he had a really good explanation for it. They take tests to see what vitamins and minerals you're deficient in. And he said, well, you're deficient in copper, and copper is what lines the blood vessels. So probably something slipped through because it was very thin. So, you know, our bodies are made up out of the soil, out of the ground. We come out of the dust of the earth. God made us out of the soil. So all those vitamins and minerals are what makes up our bodies. Just like the plants that grow in the soil, that's where we get our vitamins and minerals. So if you want to repair something or replace it, you've got to use the same material of what you're made of. Every disease is from a vitamin and mineral deficiency. It's not from a drug deficiency, but we're made up of vitamins and minerals. And drugs are helpful to get us through certain situations until we can get to a better place, but it shouldn't be where we live. So the vitamins and minerals that God put in the ground is what we're made of. So if you go to like a mechanic, he might use a wrench or something, a tool, like, you know, pain medicine, to work on the vehicle, but what he actually replaces it with is going to be the same part, not only from another vehicle, but from this, not another machine, but from that exact model vehicle. So it needs to be the parts that we're made with to repair it. So he had told me I had a TA, which was a mini stroke. And it's really interesting that our body is, did you know that you have copper, gold, and silver in your body? These are minerals. It's really interesting. Those are things that are found in the ground too. So good blood does anybody know how you make good blood? You make good blood by good digestion. You have to be able to absorb the vitamins and minerals from your food. So you have to be able to digest. It's all built on digestion. So in Counsels on Diet and Food, that is another word she talks about along with good blood, is good digestion. Well, I thought, well, I have good digestion. I don't have indigestion. It always goes down. It doesn't get stuck. Well, and then I learned that that's not the only, you know, just because it's going down doesn't mean you're digesting it. So I know you've heard you are what you eat. Well, it's actually you are what you absorb that you eat. So you can eat all the healthy food in the world, but if you're not absorbing it, if you're not digesting it well, then it's not doing you any good. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways that our digestion is hindered and some ways that we can help it. But I also want you to know that cells in our body and our stomach, they can develop bad habits, just like we develop bad habits. We teach our bodies what we want it to do. So those cells can develop new habits, and that's what we want to do. Because again, willpower is not necessary. Self-control is built in when you make good habits. You don't have to try. It's just on autopilot, and that's a very big help for us. So your number one best friend when it comes to digestion is acid. I know you've heard of hydrochloric acid. Well, that's what's in your stomach that breaks down your food so that you can absorb it. So if you ever say, well, I have an acid stomach, well, that's good. I'm glad you have an acidic stomach. It's the only part of your body you want to be acidic. And so I want to talk about some of the things that make it low, and I know you've heard of a lot of these, so I'm just going to start out with the first thing that you might not have heard of, and I hadn't known it, but it's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. If you've ever been through trauma or been under stress, that can cause your hydrochloric acid to be low. And even long after you're already out of the traumatic situation or after you're out of the stressful situation, your body can develop habits of creating low hydrochloric acid. So this affects you for years. I experienced this when we went through a tragedy with our family, and right after it happened, I became super anemic. On a scale of 15 to 150, I was a 4. So it's really, really bad. And I couldn't, about 12 and 2 o'clock, 12 or 2 during the day, I was done for the day. I didn't have physical strength, and I didn't have brain strength. I couldn't think. And as a business owner, you need to be able to problem solve, you need to be able to have deep conversations, not just shallow conversations. And so I pretty much could not think for the rest of the day. So it made life very frustrating and very difficult. And so, being anemic means that you are not producing enough red blood cells, and the blood cells you are producing can be too small. And this was relying on iron. My iron was low, and iron is one of the #1 mineral deficiencies in the world. So it's always good to get it checked because it's easy to not notice it because, you'll just won't have energy, won't be able to think, brain fog, thin hair, all these things that it causes. And those are so similar to other things, so it's always good to get it checked. So I had the low iron, and I began getting iron infusions. And Barbara O'Neill, when I went to her seminar, in her book, she talks about that she had the exact same problem, exactly like mine. She had been under a lot of stress, and during that time, she found out that her body, she was actually getting blood transfusions. I had qualified for that, but I decided to get the iron infusions. But she got blood transfusions, and it just wasn't sticking. Even though she kept getting them, it just wasn't staying. So there must be something to it to where your body has to at least be getting something of its own in order for that to stick. It's more like a boost for you. So she realized that her food, when she was eating it, she wasn't absorbing the iron from her food. And the reason why was because of the stress that she had been under. And that her body was making low hydrochloric acid because it needs, the iron has to be liberated from the food. And then she needed protein to store it. So you also have to be able to break protein down. So, and then, she realized that even though she was happy now, those days were over, she wasn't stressed anymore, she had, a really happy life, but it was still, her stomach had developed the habit of having low hydrochloric acid, so she couldn't get it from her food. So we'll talk in a little bit about how she was able to boost that, but I want to talk about some other ways besides trauma and stress that it causes it to be low. So number one, and these are all things I know that we've heard and we teach at church, but number one is eating too much food. Eating too much will deplete your hydrochloric acid. You only have so much for each meal. And so eating too much, eating too often, because again you're eating too much, you're constantly depleting it if you eat too much. If you eat too late, it depletes it. It takes 3 to 4 hours for your body to digest food and about 1 to 2 hours of rest. So your body, when it starts to get dark outside, your body's starting to shut down. It's saying, I need rest, my stomach needs rest, and we're just going to, if you give us food, we're just going to store it as fat because we can't use it. So as you start to go to sleep, your body's shut down, so it's not going to digest food. The hydrochloric acid is not going to be there. As soon as you think about, smell, or see food, that is whenever your hydrochloric acid starts to be produced. You don't want to eat, of course we've heard this before, you don't want to eat when you're upset. You're not going to digest your food. The good thing is, usually we don't want to eat. Our stomachs and knots, we don't usually eat when we're emotionally upset. You don't want to argue at the table, you've heard that. But you also don't want to eat in front of the TV because a lot of times there's very emotional things on TV, that may upset you. You don't want to be eating when you're upset. Another thing, and this is the thing that I thought, was just this nice little bow you put on your health program, that this was just a little tweak that you do, is not drinking with your meals. Well, it's actually a part of the foundation because it dilutes your hydrochloric acid. So for me, that was very important to learn that because I really needed to get all the iron that I could. So, if you drink enough between your meals, you will not be thirsty with your meals. Now, at first you may do it out of habit, but after you if you drink plenty, you will find that you will not be thirsty during the meals if you drink enough in between. So now I'm going to talk about how we can build those are ways to not deplete it. We'll talk about ways to build it, because all this is about digestion and getting the nutrients from your food so that you can have good blood. You want to have good blood. So one way that Barbara O'Neill found is that she found that she could drink a bitter tea. It was made with herbs, and it's like dandelion and licorice. I'll have the recipe if you're interested. But bitter tea, bitters, if anything is bitter to the mouth, it's sweet to the stomach. And if it's sweet to the mouth, it's bitter to the stomach. So bitters help get the enzymes going. It helps get your saliva glands going. And all our digestion begins in our mouth. So everything that we have control over as far as digesting our food is just what we put in our mouth. We don't have any control over our digestion after that, other than to be in a peaceful state. But everything starts here. That's all we have control over is our mouth. Another thing besides the bitter tea, if you don't have time to make the bitter tea, and you'll notice that they do this a lot, at the restaurant, they'll bring you out lemon water. Lemon water is a way to help stimulate your digestive juices. And then also eating raw food before you eat your cooked food, and that's another thing at the restaurants, they bring out your salads. So that helps get your enzymes going and stimulates the saliva in your mouth. So another one is not eating too often. We talked about that. So 3 to 4 hours, and then 1 to 2 hours of rest. This is 5 or 6 hours between your meals. The French in France, they only eat, basically they eat 2 meals a day. In the evening, they have a very light, like soup or broth or fruit, something very light. And during the day, they shut down. They have 2 hours for lunch, and then the town shuts down. So everybody's closed, and I'm sure to be synchronized, they'd have to be the same time every day, which is important too, to get your body used to eating at a certain time. The hydrochloric acid knows when to build. And so, the French, they eat cheese and pastries and wine, and they stay skinny. It's because they know these habits. They take their time, they sit down, they don't rush through their lunch, they have 2 whole hours, and they enjoy it, and they're in a peaceful environment. And then, then they don't eat a lot for dinner. So since you can get away with a whole lot more if you do it that way. Also not eating late at night, as I said, don't eat 3 to 4 hours, at least let it be 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. And I know a lot of these things so I'm just reminding. Not eating under stress. And then the last 2, I want to share a couple stories with you. Not eating too fast. We've heard to chew your food. Well, one reason why we're supposed to eat slow and chew our food is because while we're chewing our food, the longer that food is in your mouth, your tongue is sending signals to your brain about what types of food you're eating. And so the brain's like, okay, we're getting these vitamins and minerals and these types of food, and your brain is sending messages to your organs telling them what to expect so that they can prepare to process everything. So are we physically, we are just wonderfully and fearfully made. And so, one time I have an example where I really learned that this was true. Not only does it help as far as chewing for that reason, but eating your food slowly also helps because it helps you from overeating. You will be a lot fuller if you eat slow. And I learned this at first I was like, I don't really know if I could eat that slow. One time I went out to eat with a friend of mine, and I had not seen her in 20 years. And so as we're talking, we had a lot to catch up on. We had a lot of conversations. So as I'm sitting there, I'm talking, and there was lots of times where I would put my fork down for 5 or 10 minutes, and it took me a whole hour to eat that small plate. But by the time I was done, I was completely full. I was stuffed when I left there. Well, a few days later, I told my husband, let's go, eat here and, have this. I got the same meal. And of course, me and him talked because we didn't have much to catch up on, so I just ate it fast. Well, I left that place still starving. Well, it's the same meal, same week, but I had eaten it slower and I was a lot fuller. There's another instance of this where my husband was watching a documentary about prisoners. And they were given like one little ball of rice to eat once a day. Each person was given one little ball of rice to eat. And they found that if they ate that very, very slowly, that one ball of rice kept them full for the day. They weren't like starving, it worked to eat it slowly. So that was two things that really taught me that if you eat slower, it will keep you from overeating, and that will keep you from depleting your hydrochloric acid. God says that in the Psalms that the herb is for the service of man. So our food is our medicine, and the herbs are to aid us and to help us in times of need, and we just need that extra help. And in Revelation, he says that the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. I was recently reading a book, and it's about this little boy in Africa. And he was literally raised by demons. And this is what the demons taught him. When to eat, what to eat, where to eat, how to eat. They taught him that he would only eat a plant-based diet, vegetarian, that he would only eat 2 meals a day, and the third meal would be very light, just fruit, and that he would eat on the same hour every day, that he should eat in a peaceful place, and that he should chew his food well and slowly. They told him, you must not eat any processed food. They strictly forbid him to eat anything with artificial elements in it. They said, because we need your mind to be very clear, and if you do this, you will be a very useful instrument in our hands. And if you eat the processed foods, eventually you will not be able to communicate with us. So I thought that was very fascinating, because that's exactly what God tells us, and why He tells us is because He wants us to be able to communicate with Him. And He wants us to be able to be an instrument in His hands. So how much more should we do it for God when we know that this is the same tactic that the devil uses for his agents in this world? And so the devil knows God's ways work, and he works it for his means. So I thought that was interesting. Now, speaking of processed foods, the higher the nutrients in a food, the lower the calories. You see, your vegetables have tons of nutrients, very little calories, hardly any. But your processed foods or other foods that are very high in calories have hardly any nutrients. So it's like inverse. So that is kind of interesting. I guess they can't both take the same place up at the same time. And then just to end on this, I just wanted to share with you, I don't know if any of you know Dr. Lorraine Day, if you've ever heard of her. She's an Adventist, and she was an orthopedic surgeon. And she had breast cancer, and she had like a grape-sized tumor on her chest, and it weighed about 5 pounds. So it was painful, it was heavy to carry that around, and she was trying to figure out what to do. So she did start a vegan diet, but it was still coming back. And so she learned that it's not just what you're eating, like I said, because a lot of vegetarians, they get sick, they get cancer, they die, whatever. But she learned that it was, that new start that we talk about, the last one, trusting in God and not having stress, was a huge part of it. And she realized that she had been under a lot of stress as a surgeon. For years, she was under immense amount of stress all the time. And so she learned that the being under, I'm now putting this together with what Barbara said, that, having the low hydrochloric acid from the stress, she's just not absorbing what she needed from the food. So then what she ended up doing, I don't know if you've heard of the Gerson therapy, but I'm pretty sure that that's what she used, because she talked about, I do believe she talked about it, but the juicing is what she ended up doing. And one thing that juicing is really good for is because if you can't build your hydrochloric acid, you can bypass. And basically that's what the juice is doing. You're getting tons and tons and tons and tons of minerals and vitamins in a small glass that you can't possibly eat. She had to drink like 13 juices a day. She did this for 9 months, along with eating. But so the juicing, so it separates the fiber out for you. But you still have all the vitamins and minerals, and you have some fiber, some soluble fiber, which your bacteria eat. So the fiber you don't eat, the bacteria eat, and that's very important for gut health and for you to be happy and healthy and not sad and sick. So she started doing that, and she got completely rid of all of her cancer, and disease is dis-ease. You're not at ease. Your body's not at ease. You're under stress. Whenever you're stressed, it can cause a lot of heartache and a lot of problems because you're not able to digest your food. So basically, we are a human juicer. Have you ever seen a juicer? If you've ever juiced anything, the pulp goes out the back and the liquid comes out the front. So you're extracting. And whenever you have a very serious disease, you don't want to tax your body with the extra energy that it takes to digest food, because digesting food is one of the biggest energy-consuming things our body could possibly do. So you free your body up from doing that. You let the juicer do it, you drink it, and I just bought a new one this week, and it's amazing. I would love to share that with y'all. Maybe one day I can bring up your juice and let you try some of the different colors of the rainbow. It's really beautiful. And but that is something that is very helpful whenever we do, extra help. So I'm going to leave it with that and just let you know that next time, what goes in must come out. So we talked about how to get it in. Next time I speak, we'll talk about how to get it out with elimination. So thank y'all for listening, and have a blessed Sabbath.